Brislin.
Thank you. Just give me 1 second to get settled here.
Sure.
Good opportunity for a coffee.
Or donuts.
So much chocolate. Just let me know what you want.
So I appreciate the conversation up to this point in time because I think the council's done a really good job in covering a number of issues that really are important issues going forward that are actually embedded in our budget, but often don't get discussed.
This is what happens when we're applied with coffee and sweet treats, and we're not only bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but very inquisitive.
As you should be. As you should be.
Okay, you ready, Director?
I am. Good
Okay.
morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My presentation I kind of have both the Parks and Recreation Department and the Community Center kind of together in the same presentation because it's kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So if that's okay with you, I just assume proceed
Yep.
with that.
That's fine.
That is fine. Just a note to the council, anything to do with CSB Community Centers on page 72 of your books. Okay, go ahead.
Great. So it could take me hours to sit here and go over everything that we do through the Parks and Recreation Department, but I'm just going to cap it up in a couple minutes and kind of give a snapshot of what we do on a day-to-day basis. Claremont has a park system made up of 10 parks, which is approximately over 500 acres of parklands. These include a wide range of facilities such as baseball, softball fields, basketball and tennis courts, playgrounds, open spaces, and walking trails. Our parks are also utilized by Stevens High School. These are their main home fields as well as their practice space as well. We also have a state-of-the-art community center that we oversee and manage that averages approximately 8,220 member check-ins per month. We sell an average of 1,067 day passes per month, which totals an average of 9,287 people coming into the community center, checking in, using the facilities such as the weight room, the basketball courts, and the pool. This does not include the people coming in for meetings, the many meetings that we hold at the community center, programs such as swim lessons and swim team, and our basketball programs. The community center is open 95.5 hours per week. We're open Monday through Thursday, 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then Saturdays and Sundays we're open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The only days that we are closed at the community center are Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Easter, and Thanksgiving. We have limited hours on Memorial Day, July 4th, Labor Day, Christmas Eve, and New Year's Eve from 5:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then if you remember, we open back up on New Year's Eve to do the New Year's Eve celebration sponsored by the Rotary Club. So we're open when people can use the facility. When people are off, we're generally open and working to provide the service to the community. Parks and programs support economic development by attracting and retaining residents and generating income for the community and local businesses through events that take place throughout the year. We run and coordinate a variety of year-round programs for adult and youth sports and various recreational activities. And just to kind of give a quick snapshot, our youth sports, we see about 1,660 participants per year for youth sports. This includes youth soccer, youth basketball, the baseball and softball programs as well. Our youth camps, we see about 380 participants. Our aquatic program, we see about 375 participants per year. This is swim lessons and teaching people in youth how to swim, and adults as well with adult swim lessons. Adult sports is a growing program for us, and we see approximately 700 participants per year with our adult sports programs. Our big one that was just starting up this weekend is our adult co-ed softball league, and we have about 25 teams in that league that takes place on Saturday and Sundays at Veterans Park. In our fitness programming, we see about 1,577 people who participate in various fitness classes, such as spinning, Zumba, and boot camp as well. We oversee and coordinate over 15 special event programs. These include the July 4th program, Hallowesta, 5K races, Reach the Peak, to name a few. A few of the major accomplishments over the last year that we're very proud of is we replaced and relocated the playground at Monadnock Park. This not only allowed better access for users to the playground, but it also opened up field space by getting rid of the old playground for our growing programs. This project was made possible through the LWCF grant, as well as assistance from the Claremont Savings Bank Foundation grant. Last fall, we replaced and converted all of the lights at the community center to LEDs. This helped reduce our electricity costs at the community center. With continued help and collaboration from the Claremont Youth Baseball and Softball Association, we're able to add drainage and infield mix to a softball field at Monadnock Park, and that just happened. We just finished that up the beginning of the season about a month ago. In this spring, we hosted the Special Olympics regional meet in Claremont. This is the first time that we've done this. We had over 100 athletes. We had 70 volunteers who participated in this event. We had great feedback from the volunteers, the participants in the event, and the spectators, and we're looking forward to making this a yearly event here in Claremont. As we continue and grow to develop our programs, we also add wear and tear to our fields and facilities that add an increased workload to our existing park staff. Our park staff now is currently made up, it's overseen by our Parks and Facility Superintendent, Tim Hernan, and then we have one full-time parks person, and then we have one part-time year-round parks person. We also have two seasonal employees as well that work throughout the summer months. With the budget we developed and continued support from our local businesses, we're able to continue the same level of programming that the community has become accustomed to. And then before I open it up to questions, there were a couple items that I had in the extra column that I think you received yesterday. One of them was for a part-time maintenance person at the community center at $27,294. This part-time employee would allow us the opportunity to address many of the needs of the day-to-day maintenance of wear and tear of the community center. Another item I had on the park side was $59,000 for a new roof at the Arrowhead Lodge. The main lodge is overdue for many energy-efficient upgrades, and this $59,000 would allow us to get started on that with replacing the roof. And then I also had $240,000 on the park side for the tennis courts at Monadnock Park. They require complete replacement and new construction. We are past the point of patching and resealing, so they need attention in the immediate future.
Mr. McLean?
So with tennis courts, you know, I've seen a lot of tennis courts around the various communities that don't seem to be all that well used anymore. My apologies to anybody who's a tennis player. But are there other recreational opportunities that seem to be more popular than perhaps tennis might be?
Sure, and right now we have two tennis courts in Claremont, one at Monadnock, one at Moody Park. The one at Monadnock is in a lot better shape than the one at Moody Park. Pickleball is a growing sport. We have pickleball at the community center year-round indoors. There is an opportunity to turn the courts at Moody Park into pickleball courts. They would have room for 4 pickleball courts and a basketball court at Moody Park.
Do we know what the associated cost with that would be? Roughly, obviously.
I think the pickleball court at Moody Park would be, and the basketball court is approximately $170,000.
So before we open it to questions, just one comment with regard to your introduction, which I think we can all say we appreciate these introductions. They've been very, very comprehensive and in-depth, and it gives not only us, but people in the public a good understanding about what's happening in these departments, what's been achieved in the current fiscal year, and what you hope to achieve in the coming year. With regard to the usage of all of your parks and the community center, I know it's traditional that we tie it into economic development because it brings people into the community. But I think because we have a public health chapter in our master plan, I think it would be nice in the future to incorporate, if you can, somehow measure the impact that you're making on population health. I don't know how you might do that, but I think it's very important that we tie the investment that the community is making into these facilities with population health improvements.
So I'm hearing quality of life, which you obviously understand, which is the selling point relative to bringing new residents, new businesses, et cetera. Quality of life is very important, and these amenities are work towards that quality of life. But you're also asking about the health of the community. What comes to mind, and maybe Mark might have some additional information, would be relative to the number of participants, if there was a way to measure that, and making the inference that if people are getting some level of activity, which is what's prescribed for most people, to get out and at least have three different engagements during the week, whether you walk or you run or you play pickleball or whatever it is, for a duration of 30 to 60 minutes. That's a measure that could be helpful.
And I can give two examples. One with the economic development impact. We see a lot of people who are looking to move to the community. One of their first stops is the community center, especially younger families, people who are looking to move here. What we have to offer, and definitely the health impact. We can work on trying to measure those achievements. We have a lot of success stories at the community center of people who are there to get healthy, whether they have health issues or they're there to lose weight. We have a lot of success stories, and we can definitely work on measuring them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, questions for, yes, Assistant Mayor Dan.
Yeah, a couple of questions. I notice on the employee breakdown you've got fitness instructors listed. Most of them filled, one that's vacant. Do the fitness instructors pay a fee to the community center?
So fitness instructors are part-time employees of the community center. We have approximately 9 to 10 fitness instructors, and we offer approximately 26 classes per week.
Okay.
So if there's a class that we're looking, or a class that we can offer, we always look at trying to bring them in and offer a class if it's cost effective.
At some point in the past, recently, a couple of years, it had been, I think, discussed, and I don't have a problem with the way you explained it, but it had been discussed that if people were going to come into the community center and wanted to run their business activities as a fitness instructor, they would be required to pay you a fee.
So currently we have personal trainers.
Okay.
So we can't confuse personal trainers with
Fitness instructors
of classes that we offer.
All right.
We have 2 personal trainers who pay us a monthly fee to conduct their business and meet clients at the community center.
Okay. And lastly, I know we've talked about it for a few years regarding your maintenance person. This is a half-time position in the extra. Yeah, I would be in support of that, but we'll see what somebody else has to say.
So, I'm sorry.
You want to say
I was
something?
just going to ask about the, so if somebody comes in and is an instructor for Zumba or some other particular activity like that, do we charge anything additional for the participation in the class?
Yeah, we have some classes that are included in the price of a membership, and other classes we have a fee for, depending on the equipment involved and the certification of the instructor.
Thank you.
Councilor Keir.
So I think I also echo what it's like Alan, but what Councilor Tamlin was saying, lovely Alan was saying, because I think that Parks and Rec is, it's massive. We have this awesome, it's probably the most tangible thing we have in Claremont that shows how great we are. It's such a great asset. 500 acres of parkland is amazing. I think we need to make sure we're investing in it, because it's also probably one of the most visible things people see and use when they're coming to Claremont, especially if they're looking for a new place to come. So I would be in favor of these additional expenditures as well.
Okay. Counselor Kier? Counselor Kolowski.
I'm very proud to be one of the 9 that voted to build the community center. It took a lot of heat for that decision, and shortly after it opened, most of those questions went away because people joined the facility and see what it actually does for the community. I think it's vitally important to add in the part-time maintenance position. One of the reasons that led us to build the new community center is the wear and tear and the lack of councils putting funding behind maintaining what we had. And I think for $27,000, it's wisely spent.
Counselor Pope?
2 questions. The first one is the part-time employee half-time there. What's the other half-time? Or is that person just specifically half-time?
That person would be half-time. It's still part-time, 28 hours a week.
So in the past, I'm going to add with 2 other questions here. In the past discussions, that part-time employee was also going to be shared with the folks to do things down there. But now this person will be specifically half-time, not shared with anybody else, therefore not getting the benefits and such?
Correct. I haven't had any luck of trying to get the full-time person between both departments, and I really feel that this is a need. If I start with a part-time employee, I think that's a great start for us.
Yeah, I remember benefits and a few other things were part of the issues as well. So the second line of questioning goes to the $59,000 for Arrowhead, and I'll ask this of both you and the mayor. I believe we had received some money from the state of $100,000 earmarked for Arrowhead.
I'm glad you brought that up. So as you know, on Tuesday, I was at the State House testifying before the Senate Finance Committee. And in preparation for that testimony, I checked into where we are with that. So where we're at is during the House budgeting process, they stripped out those capital improvement projects that the governor had originally proposed. There was somebody from Lebanon who testified during the Senate Finance Committee about putting the money back in to tear down some state-owned buildings up in Lebanon. Other than that, there isn't any movement that I know of happening with regard to returning those capital improvement budgets to the budget process that is now in the Senate. However, I am hearing that there is support, instead of doing those specific projects that the governor proposed, to release about $20 million to the communities, to the 234 communities in the state. And that can be used however the communities want. So the budget process is nowhere near final, but that's where I'm hearing. So whether we get it in the form of the specific project, or if we get it in the form of, and I don't know how $20 million is going to break out across the state, but there is, either way, there is the probability that we will get monies from the state for infrastructure type or capital improvement type projects. Director Brisley.
Can I ask a question back at you?
Yeah.
How does their budget line up for our budget process as far as that being approved and knowing when this will be approved? I mean,
Well, we have on the council, we have State Representative O'Hearn, so why don't you answer that question?
As far as the budget?
No, as far as when it's finalized normally.
Well, it's going to go from the House to the Senate and then back.
Committee of Conference. Yeah.
If they can't agree on it, then so it could be in June.
Yeah, so we're looking at sometime in June is usually when that happens.
Sorry.
Let me go, you wanted to comment on the budget?
Well, I'll wait for Councilor.
Go right ahead. I'm
Okay.
Sorry.
So I'm wondering about this. So this may not be true, but it's my feeling that Claremont doesn't get its fair share. So I'm concerned about that, and I'd like to understand how this $20 million is going to be distributed. Is it going to be competitive? Is it going to be a formula? where does it come from? And I really think that Claremont needs to get its fair share of that 20 million if it's available.
We couldn't
And I hope that
agree more.
Councilor O'Hearn and others will make a real effort to get that for us.
And I think we will be, because I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. McLean. Ms. Walter.
The other thing I thought was that the projects that the governor had were actually the second year of the state's biennium budget, because it's a 2-year budget. So we wouldn't necessarily see, in regards to what you were talking about, until FY21, if they put it back in the budget.
Okay. Somebody had a question here?
Councilor Stone.
Oh, Councilor Stone wanted to. Yeah.
Jumping back to Arrowhead for a second, what's the condition of the heating system at Arrowhead now?
That is also in the energy efficient upgrades. I don't know the year off the top of my head, but that is one of the things that would,
So it's still functioning, it's just you want to replace it?
correct.
Okay, so
It's,
that will help me out a lot. And the windows and doors, same thing, everything's A-okay, they just want to replace it for?
yeah, I mean, the windows and doors are, I know the windows are original with the building, and as we're doing energy efficient upgrades to help us out, we would want to kind of replace all of them.
So the
they're-
third one is the roof. Now that has some issues that are pending that are more, priority than the
Yeah,
other two.
I think the roof is our top priority now. Chuck came, and there's shingles that are falling off, and we want to make sure that we don't get water into the building. So I think roof would be our top priority. And that's kind of why I started with the roof, kind of being looking at the overall budget and not doing it all at once.
And that's why that figure doesn't match with what we asked.
Correct.
That which was included in the governor's proposed budget.
Correct. Governor's proposal, I included everything for this budget here because of everything else that we need to fund. I just did the roof.
Councilor Kier?
I'd like to motion to tentatively approve the parks budget.
Before,
We're done. Go ahead.
we're now done, so
Yeah, I got questions.
Councilor O'Hearn.
Under machines and equipment, 940 line item. You have $100. What is that for?
I'm sorry, what line item?
940. 940.
Parks.
That's right.
Machines and equipment.
That would be me. Technically, you're not supposed to spend money out of a line that has no money in it. So generally, those are placeholders in case we have to transfer money down to that line to spend something. So you'll see a bunch of lines that may have $10 in them, or $50 or $100. That's one of these. There's not necessarily something he plans on buying with $100.
The reason I am asking is that I use the gym quite often, and I know that you've updated the treadmills and stuff like that. And I was wondering if you're going to update the equipment and the weight part of it.
So for this year that we have a little bit of money from capital in the equipment for. We're not looking to do a big replacement of the equipment for the weights right now. The weight machines and those type of things are about an 8 to 10 year window. Right now we are on year 6, so we have some money to do some repairs and some minor replacements of some benches and things, but not an overall replacement of the machines.
He's on
Who's on the community center side?
All right. Councilor O'Hearn?
Let's go to the line item of 510, which is building maintenance contract and cleaning. See, that's going up to $67,591 from our $65,000. Is it a contract change? Is it a new contract?
No, contract is remaining the same. We have upped our service with Swish as far as supplies. They're coming on a weekly basis and changing out mop heads and other cleaning materials that they use on a weekly basis. We don't have access to a washer and dryer to clean them ourselves, so they're coming and changing them out on a weekly basis.
Other questions?
Yes.
Councilor Stone?
You have no washers and dryers there currently?
At the community center, no.
Have you ever thought about implementing them?
We have, when they built the community center, they have the place for them and the plumbing ready to go. That would be something that we'd have to look for when we're ready for it, for a lease and to add.
Wouldn't that be a more practical, viable option since it's something that's going to be utilized, mostly daily, if not at least a couple every days?
And that comes down to staffing too, as far as having somebody, to do the laundry and make sure that, they get taken out and put in a timely manner.
Okay.
Counselor Gillespie, you had a question?
I had the same question, that's why I pointed. I figured he was going to ask about the washer and dryer. I thought the same thing for a company that I use that does towels, and that for us, there was no savings there. So I would question whether it's a good idea to look into, but for what they're getting dropped off and picked up, it may not make sense. But I had the same question.
Counselor Stone?
Back to the tennis courts. Now, $250,000 is a pretty substantial amount to put into tennis courts. How much are these tennis courts actually used, and is it actually the best expenditure of taxpayers' money on, $250,000 of tennis courts?
So-
That's my key question.
Yep. Stevens High School utilizes them for their tennis team. And then we have a tennis group that plays in the evenings on the summer. It's one of those things right now where I hear a lot of complaints about the quality of the tennis courts, and I think they would be utilized more if they were in better shape and upkept. There are other options that I have. This is a 4-court system. We could drop down to a 2-court system, but the high school would need a certain amount of courts for their play. So we would have to coordinate with them, or we could do 2 courts, and if they needed 4 courts to play, then they could pick up the difference.
And this amount would only cover the Monadnock tennis court?
Correct.
So the cost is really in the surface, the tennis court surface.
Right.
So how long would one of those surfaces last?
So right with the system that we have now, it was built, I don't know how many years ago, but technology has changed, and the tennis courts now do not withstand the New England climate. The frost heaves, and it just cracks the surface. So if we were to just go in, and it's been done before, they fill the cracks and they resurface it, and it just pulls apart within the winter. So now, hopefully it would last, up to another 20 years for the surface. It'd have to be resurfaced again, every 7 to 8 years just for the upkeep.
So I think that goes to your question, Councilor Stone, because if most of the use is going to one particular club and also the high school to support a program, is there a way for us to also get some additional revenue relative to the upkeep and maintenance of these courts, in particularly the playing surfaces, which is where all the expense is? Is it possible for the school to share in some of the cost with the city relative to these courts? Again, I realize that the school has its own issues, but nevertheless, if we're maintaining courts for primarily for their use, and the community's not using them as much, but they need us to keep those courts in play, then perhaps there's a cost-sharing formula that would be helpful, so that we could have a way of keeping them in the condition that they need to be in over the course of some time frame.
And the other option would be to apply for grants. But a lot of the grants, ask for a match, whether 50% or 75%, depending on the grant. So right now, I don't have any money for a match to write that grant with.
Okay.
Excuse me. So if you have an opportunity for a grant, what was the percentage?
They're usually, a 50% match. LWCF was a 50% match, and I know that's coming up for another round in this summer or fall.
All right, so that might be something to take a look at,
Yep.
and then come back to the council relative to that particular project. In the meantime, would the council like us to take a look at whether or not we should actually have 4 tennis courts, or should we reduce the size to 2, and are there other playing surfaces that might be utilized for new sports and new activities?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Okay. Other questions? Counselor Hearn?
One more question. I don't know how to phrase it, but it's my understanding that the community center was supposed to be at some point self-sufficient. Or are you guys in the red or in the black?
May I respond to that? So I believe both Councilor Kolowski and I were on the council at the time we made a motion and passed that motion. I forget what the number was, but I think it was unanimous. To hold the line at no more than a $500,000 investment in the operations. I'm not talking about the
Debt service.
the bond for the building of it. But that threshold was based on what it cost the city for the old community center. So that's why in your departmental report that Director Brislin gives every month, you'll see what after matching the expenditures to the revenues, what is the investment from the taxpayer. And I believe the estimate is, at this point, $477,000. So we haven't, since that motion was taken, I forget how many years ago, we haven't gotten past 500,000. In fact, we're going down. So there's always, yes, we should always try to decrease the investment needed for operations, but right now, I believe in 2019, FY 2019 is estimated to be about 477,000. That's the history.
Very
Do you have
good answer.
anything?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Councilor.
And the only reason I'm saying this, and we've had a discussion, is that I think we have to look at the hours because, for some reason, as I've mentioned before, community center closes at 6 o'clock on Sunday, and it closes earlier or a little bit later on Saturday, but during the week you're open till 9.
Yes. Right, so Monday through Thursday, we're open till 9. Fridays, we close at 7. Weekends, we close at 6.
Councilor Stone?
Is there any particular reason that the community center hasn't really looked at doing a 24-hour operation for, keyless fob entry?
Actually, that conversation has come up. We've talked about it a little bit on the Parks and Rec Board. I did talk with with Primex, our insurance carrier. They would expect the same level of service of staffing that is there during the day than is there at night. So we would have to have a front desk attendant. If the pool is open, we'd have to have lifeguards. But just if the fitness center was open, they would expect some sort of staffing presence there.
Do you think that would be a viable option?
It's something that we were looking at the Parks and Recreation Commission. It's come up. There's several members that have talked to me about it, and it's something we can investigate. I have a hard enough time finding a staff member to open at 5:30 in the morning.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'd like to just go down the line and find out who is in support of the part-time maintenance at 27,000 something. 27,294. I know some people have said, Councilor Lassard, would you be in favor of adding that to the budget? And this is just tentatively. I'm just trying to get an idea. Okay, Councilor O'Hearn?
No.
Yes.
Councilor Zulu?
I'm not really sure at this point.
Okay.
Yes.
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 And I would be in favor as a tentative. Okay? Yes, Mr.
So
McLean.
I really appreciate how the council is doing this, and I think that there's nothing wrong with this at all. This is great to go through and get tentative approvals, and there is also an argument to be made, I suppose, or a discussion to be had relative to wanting to see the entirety of the budget before you get too locked into, because then you'll begin to see how it all plays, because if we're going to take something out, then it provides us with more room. If we don't take anything out of the budget that's been presented, then the supplemental list is going to add cost, and it's going to increase the tax rate, and you haven't really seen everything yet. So I do appreciate what all the members of the council are saying and doing, but it's still a good portion of the iceberg is still under the water, and you haven't seen it yet.
And the Titanic's coming up.
So I just think that it just sounds good to go in this direction, but you might want to see the entirety of the budget and then begin to think how you want to shape it and how much and where you want to put the additional dollars if it does drive the tax rate.
Right. So my intent in doing this is just to find out on various supplementals where there is support and where there is not.
Understood.
So
I understand.
Anyway, so we are seeing some change over the years. I think before, in the past, for Parks and Rec, the ask was for a full-time maintenance person. In light of the support that you were starting to see, Director Brislin, I would ask for an outline of what this person would do exactly, what the job description is, and what is not currently being met that would be met by having this position. Is that fair from the council? Any other? Okay.
Yes, that's very fair, Your Honor. I do think, however, that the job description is basically the maintenance of the facility, and of course we can provide that to you. That's a really good, I think, inquiry on your part, because what isn't happening now?
Right.
And so with the outside service coming in periodically throughout the day, that's a good thing, but it doesn't carry forward. And so there are time frames where we don't get the level of cleanliness that we want. And for a facility like that, we really want it to always look its best to the extent possible. Now, it's like anything else, you're buying down the cost of doing business to the extent that you can't have somebody there all the time. However, one of those most heavily utilized periods of time, and could we have a person who could hit those areas a little harder than just the cleaning service that we have now? And I think that's going to be the bulk of what you hear from us.
Councilor Kolowski.
This is where I don't want to get confused on this, because we have I understand that this maintenance could probably fill in some gaps there, but I think what's important and what I don't want to see happen is what's happening now. The maintenance, to me, would be touch-up painting, repairs, fixing doorknobs, items like that are not happening, that you actually would expect our part-time desk employee to go try to address something. And over time, we end up with the building across the street that we have to close.
And that's where I was going to follow up with the city manager, is that, there are day-to-day things that happen. We average over 400 people a day to come through the door. Middle school kids are in there. We just had one of them throw a rock and break the window and shatter the window in front of the community center. So, to clean that up, nicks in the wall, to have a schedule to repaint them. If there is something that the right person with the right knowledge and skills, if there's a piece of machinery that's down in the fitness room, it's at least 2 weeks before we can have our service company come and service that. If it's something that they can just tighten a bolt or readjust a belt that they can do, it would get that back up. And it's part of the customer service piece that would definitely help us put our best foot forward.
Okay, Councilor, you had something?
Well, I'm always for public employees, but at the end of the day, I was, the 67,000 that we're paying for the maintenance cleaning. What is it that they do that if we were to potentially, let's say, hypothetically, hire 2 part-time maintenance personnel and bring it back to so that there's somebody on there all the time instead of having this company coming in periodically?
So in that line item, our contract for the cleaning company is approximately $54,000. The other money is for supplies and the other services that we talked about earlier. I've talked to other departments, other community centers around the nation. A lot of them use contracted services. A lot of them have contracted services there on a full day basis. we have them come in at night and do a cleaning. I think having somebody that can, fill in the gaps. At this point, I need somebody that can repair things and fix things and do kind of the supplemental cleaning. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Well, I think you'll come back with some details with regard to that position that might satisfy some questions. The last thing that I had was, I know you had approached the council at some point about corporate memberships, and I don't know where you went with that, and are there any other revenue streams that you're currently investigating?
So we continue, right now we're working with Red River with the corporate memberships. I had a meeting about a month or two ago with NFR with the same corporate membership, and we're trying to work out logistics with that. And other revenue streams that we've talked about and that we're currently doing. We have sponsorships in the gym. We have banners that go around the gym. This past year, I think we brought in about $3,000 with those sponsorships. So it's something that we're working on improving every year and looking at doing as time goes on. And each year we have more banners that we're about halfway around the gym right now.
Are you going to be doing that same thing down at Monadnock Park?
Right now, the Baseball Association does it for their fundraising for on the fields, and they're an extension of our department with the baseball and softball program.
So perhaps not before this budget needs to be approved, but at some point, I'd like to see, I don't know about the rest of the council, but a presentation on where in the out years, some revenue streams that you may be able to develop.
And when are you looking for that presentation? Just
after this budget season. So, does that sound fair?
So, Your Honor, I think that's the kind of thing that he has to work with his Parks and Rec Advisory Board on.
Yep.
Before they can then bring something back to you. I've
Right.
only been to one meeting of the Parks Advisory Board, but I know that they have, very strong opinions and have put a lot of time and effort into this. And so, one of the things that I believe is an opportunity for the community is to take that same hard look at where some additional revenues could be created, and certainly in memberships is one, and then if that occurs, where does the money go? And there's certainly a certain amount of additional maintenance that should occur, and that's certainly a place where some of that revenue could go. It's possible that revenue could also start to drive down the cost of subsidizing operations.
Yeah.
Those are all good, I think, goals. And for Mark to work with his board, his advisory board, and then come forward to the council, I think would be a really good thing to take a look at those plans. So that probably is going to be something that could occur probably towards the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And again, it's just in the talking stage, and there's some very strong opinions about this, but perhaps we could get the conversation going.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else before we make a motion to tentatively approve? Does anybody want to make that or not? Councilor Kier.
So on the parks budget, I would like to motion to tentatively approve a budget of $461,503, which includes the $59,000 needed for the Arrowhead roof, with the understanding that I would support additional funding for the tennis court / whatever once we have more information on what you're thinking for that.
Wait a minute. Can you say that motion again?
Yeah, I would like to tentatively approve a parks budget of $461,503, which includes the additional extra $59,000 for the Arrowhead roof.
Okay. And so the motion was made by Councilor Kier, seconded by Assistant Mayor Dameron. All those in favor say aye.
We have a conversation.
Yes.
We didn't talk about the roof at all, and I understand there might be funds lingering towards that. I I'm very mindful of all of the buildings, the outdoor pool that got shut down, the GCC, because the JSL, all of the stuff that we don't invest dollars into, I think it's important to add this money in, and in the event that we can recoup that from outside funds, fantastic, but I really think it needs to be invested in at this time.
And I would definitely, obviously, agree. Arrowhead is a huge, amazing resource we have that a lot of towns don't have, and we really need to be able to invest in that building to make sure that it's viable for the long term. People continue to come for it.
So I have a comment, and I am a huge supporter of Arrowhead and what they do for the community economically, and all of the many hours of volunteer work that has gone into that facility. And yes, the roof is in terrible need of repair. However, I'd be reticent at this time, knowing what's coming down the pike from the state, to put this into the budget as a cost to the taxpayer, because I believe the probability is very high that we are going to get state funding for this type of project. So I would not be in favor of including it this time. I think if that failed, I think we could look at moving something out of fund balance if we needed to. Councilor Stone?
At this time, I'm not in favor of tentatively agreeing this budget at all until we get some more information based on, like I said, the $250,000 improvements that are listed for the tennis court, as well as Arrowhead, to include the reasons for funding. And at this point, I think that's a large chunk of change to add to this budget without having that information before any of us.
Okay. So, anybody else want to say anything, and we'll just go down the line? So how many are in favor of the motion that was made, which was the addition of the roof for Arrowhead? It's 4. And then the rest of us are not, so that motion fails. Okay?
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
So it's not that you're voting down that particular project at this point, it's simply that adding it in right now before you know what the final outcome of your budget is, maybe just a little quick.
Yeah.
So am I reading that correctly, that at the end, when you're deliberating about the budget, then you're going to then you'll certainly have a conversation about all of these different projects?
Yes. Councilor Kowalski?
Yeah, we've done this in years past. It's basically just, in essence, a reminder bookmark that we talked about this particular item, and then at the tail end, we go back, just correct me if I'm wrong, but just all the years that we go back and we discuss, same thing, bus service, all of that,
Sure.
at the tail end, which ones we argue extensively then.
So I think it's helpful for the general public who are watching to understand that you're not necessarily voting out the project, you're just not ready to vote it in.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so does anybody want to tentatively approve the CSB? Right, and if not, then we can just pass, and because Councilor Stone said he's not in favor of either at this point in time, we don't have to. I mean,
Not until we have more information on the part-time employee.
What more are you guys looking for? Because I guess I'm confused. I feel like they've explained the position pretty clearly. So I'm just wondering specifically, just so we don't come back and they give us the same information, is there specifics that you want from them so they bring you the right shit?
yes, I think we went over that. I'm not sure what you're asking.
No, and that's what I'm missing, because I thought they'd answered your questions, and that's why I'm confused. So I want clarification.
I think we understand it from the point of view, Counselor, that we're going to look at the contracted service right now, see what they provide us in terms of their time and the effectiveness of that. So let's say that what they do for us gives us a standard, a significant standard that works for us, a satisfactory standard of 80% of the time, but we have 20% that's because of the use and because of when they're here and when they're not. We might be able to pick up that additional 20% and just bring our standards up a little higher during that time frame. Plus, we also have the other piece that Nick mentioned, which was can we do some of the other ongoing maintenance from time to time, to touch up the painting, the things of that nature, turn a bolt, on a machine, things of that nature, you know. So I think that's what we're going to go back and look at and see how it fits in with the schedule we already have. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And Jeremy, does that work for you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Counselor Kowalski?
For all of these, I honestly, we don't seem to have some set standard. I think we should tentatively approve all of them or not, but it's simple. If you don't agree, just vote no, and then we make a note to come back to that. So I have no problem in making a motion to tentatively approve the CSB budget for $1,133,248. That includes the money for the part-time position.
I would second.
Okay, so that motion was made by Counselor Kowalski, seconded by Counselor Kier. Show of hands, who is in favor of that? And then who was not? There's three then, right? Three? Yeah.
Actually, 4.
Okay, that's correct. Counselor Hernstone and Counselor Zullo are not in favor of that, correct? Right. So the three that are not in favor are Counselors O'Hearn, Stone, and Zullo.
And the amount was $1,133,248.
She had a part-time position for that one.
Zullo. Yes.
Can I ask that we just do a roll call, because I think it's getting confusing to not only her, us as well, when we do.
That's what I propose.
I haven't been confused, but okay, if you want, I mean, that just takes more time.
We're taking the amount of time trying to catch her up.
I think this is one instance.
Is it time for a break? Yeah.
It is.
Okay, cool.
One more thing.
We're already getting punchy. What's up, Pat?
Well, back to the Parks budget. We never really had a vote on that, whether to approve or not, and my comment, I appreciate Mr. Stone's comment about needing the information on the tennis courts and such, but I don't see that coming during this budget season. I see that being a long-term discussion that's going to take more than between now and June with your Parks and Rec Board and such like that. What is the future of the tennis courts, things like that. So I would like to make a motion to approve the Parks budget at $402,503, which is the original set.
There was already a,
There was
Yeah, I
a
mean-
motion on
Yeah, there
that.
was already a vote on that.
You made a,
Yeah, I made the motion for the roof, though. He's making it without the roof.
I'm making it without the roof, I'm just making it the original.
I'll second that.
The original motion was made by Ms. Kier was made 461,503. I'm just going back to the original budget number.
Okay. So,
Yes.
right.
She made fail.
And so the motion was made by Counselor Pope, seconded by Counselor Kier. Tentatively,
Pulaski.
oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Counselor Kowalski to tentatively approve the Parks and Parks budget as proposed by the city manager at $402,503, correct? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Who's opposed?
Opposed.
So everybody says yes except for Counselors Stone and O'Hearn. Okay, now we're scheduled for a 15-minute break. Do you want to take the full 15 minutes? We are behind schedule by 35. Huh?
I think we take 12.
I think we need
15.5.
15, okay. All right, so we'll be back at 11:20.